Alright guys, today I'm going to be ranking the 23-24 NHL playoffs. Just by how fun the matchups are going to be, and just not really going to go into predictions this video. I will do that most likely tomorrow. But let's just go ahead and get into it. So with the first matchup, Battle of Florida here, I'm excited for this. The Panthers are a gritty team, and the Lightning are a pretty balanced overall team. Obviously, the Lightning are not as good as they were in their cup run, but they are a cup winning team. Two in the last 4 years. Obviously, both of them came 2 years ago, 3 years ago. I guess 3 years ago, whatever. But I think that this is going to be a fun game. Battle of Florida. The Panthers, gritty team. They did finish atop of the Atlantic, and they did have a sweep to get into the Stanley Cup playoffs last year. They swept the Hurricanes. It was obviously probably the closest sweep in the history of the NHL, but it was still a sweep. So obviously the Panthers are going to want to finish off this year with a cup instead of, coming up short. No one cares about who plays second. People really just care about who plays first. So with that being said, let's get to our next team. The Bruins and Maple Leafs, I think, are going to be an exciting matchup. Both teams are very good as well. And the Bruins are a good team, obviously, and it feels like people have been waiting for them to take a step back. And you could say they have a step back from this year to last year, but when you set NHL records in about every category, from a team standpoint, you're gonna step back. But I wouldn't call it a step back in the sense of they got worse or anything like that. But the Maple Leafs have a lot to prove here as well, because they've been coming up short so much in the playoffs. Obviously, they finally got past the first round last year, but who cares that they got past the first round? You need to get past the second round, the third round. You need to get past the fourth round and be on top of the NHL. So it's just stuff like that. You want to prove that you're a good team. I feel like they're a little incomplete, and I feel like part of this incompleteness is just because they haven't made it far in the playoffs at all. But moving on to our next matchup, also, there's a fair bit of history here in this matchup, so I think that'll be interesting to see, and that'll be fun to see with the history of these teams. But coming up next, we have the Rangers and Capitals. I do think that this is going to be a good game. I feel like there is a little bit of upset territory here with how the Capitals made it to the playoffs. But I just think that because the Rangers are seeking more from last year, and that they did, come up really short last year, that it just kind of feels like they're not gonna lose this first round. And the Capitals probably don't have what it takes to take the Rangers in a 7-game series. But that's what's so fun about the NHL, is just how unpredictable it can be. So moving on to our next matchup, though, the Hurricanes and Islanders, obviously a rematch from last year's first round. It has to go into C tier just because, even though the Canes are my favorite team, it'd be really biased to say that these are two fun, exciting to watch teams. The Canes are fun to watch because of how good they are defensively, but they're also good offensively, and they've gotten even better with that this year. But the Islanders are just good defensively, and they weren't even that good in the defensive zone this year as they have been in past years. So it's two teams that play kind of similar style hockey, but I just think that the Canes probably going to come out on top. They have to, because I like them. So, obviously they're going to come out on top, and they're going to win the whole thing. Maybe. No jinxes though. So we're probably going to lose the first round. But moving on to the Jets and Avalanche, we're going to put them in S tier just because these are two explosive, fun teams. Good offensively. You've got good player matchups. You've got great goaltending from the Jets. I mean, you've also got great players from the Avalanche here with Rantanen, McKinnon. Kind of weird that Rantanen's the first guy I said. But, I think that this is going to be a fun matchup too here, with these two explosive, fun offensive teams. And it'll be fun to see that. And I just think that it's going to be exciting, right? Like, you've got two offensive great teams. Obviously, I'm starting to repeat myself here, but you've just got two elite offensive teams, but the Jets also have that goaltending charm to them that the Avalanche don't quite have, with Hellebuck in net for the Jets. So I think that's going to be probably the most fun matchup of this first round, because obviously Florida and Tampa's fun, but it's the Battle of Florida. That's probably what makes it so fun. But moving on here to the Canucks and Predators, I think that this is prime upset territory. With how the Predators finished the season steaming in with 99 points when it looked like they weren't even going to make the playoffs, and they were being rumored to going to be trading away their starting goalie in UC Saros. I just think that this is going to be so fun to see how they come in. And this is definitely prime upset territory, at least in my opinion. And I think it's going to be fun to see that from the Predators. I do hope they upset the Canucks just because of how exciting it'll be. But the Canucks are a great team as well, with great goaltendings from their guy in Thatcher Demko. I believe he is back here. I thought he played the other night too. Obviously, coming back from injury might be a little tough, but I don't think he struggled too much in the game the other day, unless I'm wrong on that. But I think that this is going to be another fun matchup here for the playoffs here, and probably one of the most fun matchups. Alright, so I'm back, and obviously it's nothing for you guys, but because of what the current scores are halfway through the games with the Kings and the Knights, I'm just going to go with what the current bracket is. So next up, the Stars versus the Kings. So I think that this is kind of like the Islanders versus the Hurricanes, but I think it's just maybe a little of a better series, just because I feel like there might be a little more firepower. Um, Obviously, I think the Hurricanes probably. I think that there's just the second team in this. Obviously, the Islanders would be the second team in the Canes Islanders matchup. I think the second team in this, the Kings, is a bit more exciting than the Islanders. So we're gonna put it into B tier. I think there might be. It feels like the Western Conference side of Canes versus Islanders. But I think that if the Kings do end up playing the Oilers, that could also be another upset game. At least that's what I think. I think that could be a game where the Kings could upset the Oilers, just with how, unless the Oilers can find a way to beat the Kings 1-3-1. I feel like the Oilers would actually get trapped into that and wouldn't be able to beat that series against the Kings. But with how it stands right now, the Kings do play the Stars. I think the Stars have a better chance to beat the Kings than the Oilers have to beat the Kings. With the Oilers versus the Knights, a rematch of last year's Western Conference Final. So that's pretty interesting. But there's not. I mean, you have McDavid versus Eichel, Marchessault, and also Draisaitl on the Oilers. Goaltending's going to be a little weaker in the series. So this could be a fun series too. Rematch of last year's Western Conference Finals. I'm going to put in A tier. I think this would be a very fun series to watch. I think it's going to be a very interesting series. So if that's how those two series holds, then that'll be fun. But I do think, this isn't my predictions video, so I'm not going to get too much into it, that if the Oilers play the Kings, the Oilers will lose that series. But so that's it. Thank you guys for tuning in. Hope you guys enjoyed it. And come back for more.